Welcome, everyone. If you're just joining, we are going to get started in just a minute. We're just going to let everyone log on. All right. Welcome, everyone, to the Vendor Market Conference for Law Enforcement Surveillance and Security Monitoring Technology Products and Services. The RFO is DIR-CPO-TMP-594. Before we get started, we're going to go over a few notes. Can everybody please raise their hand to confirm that they can hear me? Perfect. Thank you so much. I would like to remind everyone that you can switch between your computer audio and your phone call. The attendees will be muted. If you have any questions, please submit it in the Q&A, and this handout will be made available in the addendum. Today we have the speakers. We have Scott Wilson is the procurement lead. We have Marie Cohan, the statewide digital accessibility officer, and then Stephanie Harrison, the director of co-op procurement. And then we had Teresa, but she's not available today, so we have Patricia Robbins. To go over the agenda today, we have the goals and solicitation scope, the DIR overview, cooperative contract solicitation process, digital accessibility, hub subcontracting plan, responding to DIR solicitations, general information, what are the next steps. Then we're going to have an open forum, and we'll have some discussions and time for questioning, and then we'll close the conference. I will now turn it over to Scott.
All righty. Thank you, Brina. I appreciate that. Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us today for this marketing for the marketing forum for law enforcement and surveillance and security monitoring technology products and services. So we will get started talking about the forum goals and the solicitation scope. All right, so the goal of DIR market engagements is to inform vendors new and old of upcoming solicitations, as well as receive input from vendors on what we can do better or what we could do better this time around. So looking at the slide, our goals are to inform new vendors, promote hub vendors networking, remove any barriers that might be present, as well as promote healthy competition, and then lastly, reduce costs. Next slide, please. All right. So the DIR Law Enforcement Surveillance and Security Monitoring Technologies Products and Services RFO is going to be posted in April of 2025. The pre-solicitation conference has already been posted to the website, so that is now live. And this is the resolicitation of RFO DIR-CPO-TMP-594. In terms of the scope, DIR expects it to include the following, but not limited to law enforcement and public safety hardware, software, and/or solutions, surveillance and security products and services, unmanned vehicles, as well as the imaging systems for the unmanned vehicles, electronic monitoring products and services, different types of detectors for law enforcement to utilize, types of inmate kiosk and communications, data breach and identity theft monitoring services, telematics products and services, as well as social media tracking and monitoring tools, classrooms and school bus monitoring surveillance, and then lastly, law enforcement robots. And again, these are some of the highlights and some of the bigger items that we are going to be covering in the scope, but please understand this encompasses many different items as well. Next slide, please. All right, so previously, these products and services were solicited together with emergency preparedness, disaster recovery, information technology products, and related services under, which I mentioned in the previous slide, RFO DIR-CPO-TMP 443. However, this solicitation will be for law enforcement, surveillance, and security monitoring products solicited under RFO DIR-CPO-TMP 594. Emergency preparedness and disaster recovery will be solicited and advertised under a different RFO, which is DIR-CPO-TMP 595. So in other words, if you were awarded DIR contracts under RFO 443 for law enforcement and surveillance and security monitoring products, you will need to submit a response to RFO 594, as I mentioned above, in order to be considered for award. And again, the pre-solicitation conference for RFO 594 has been posted to the ESBD. Next slide, please. All right, so vendor versus partner. So DIR considers a vendor someone who promotes or exchanges goods or services for money. Some examples: takes orders, is reactive or responsive, takes a narrow view, and lastly, provides goods, services, and different types of data. However, as a partner, DIR considers a partner someone that understands the agency's business needs and works collaboratively with DIR and other vendor partners to provide the best value for the state of Texas. And this involves, listens to understand the business need, is proactive and makes recommendations, sees the whole picture, and interprets data well. Next slide, please. All right, so DIR is looking for partners who understands DIR customers' needs and offer the best solutions, who offer solutions and delivery methods that meet next generation customer demands, and lastly, who can deliver on the understanding through offerings to continue overall success for DIR, its customers, as well as partners. Next slide, please. All right, so this event is designed to engage with potential respondents or others that have an interest in this RFO. Certainly DIR is sharing information. However, we are also interested in your feedback. So participants may use the Zoom communication features to do the following: ask questions, seek clarification regarding the upcoming RFO scope or the solicitation process, as well as provide feedback regarding this upcoming RFO, including the current state of law enforcement surveillance and security monitoring market or other aspects that you would like to discuss. Next slide, please. All right, so now we are going to go over a brief overview of DIR. Next slide, please. Okay, so this pie chart is always a good depiction of DIR's service delivery. I'm going to start with the cooperative contracts on the upper right-hand quadrant. This is the do-it-yourself model or self-service model where you can go procure your hardware or software products. You could use our DBITs or deliverable-based contracts, utilize our staffing services contracts, or take advantage of our bulk purchasing initiatives, which we'll talk more later in more detail. Moving downward to the bottom right quadrant, this is the communications portion of DIR. And in this area, DIR is responsible for the Capitol Complex telephone system. If you are in an agency near the Capitol or you call your legislature, the CCT is a product of DIR. We are also responsible for the internet and networking operations for the state of Texas and for all of our customers who use these services, as well as security operations and keeping the state secure and our operations secure for customers who utilize DIR services. So these services are handled through our Network Security Operations Center. All right, now let's move over to the bottom left quadrant. This is their shared technology services. This is the we do it for you type model. And these services are available, all these services are available for our customers. So these services do require an agreement with DIR, and they include our data services as well as the Texas.gov portal. So if you go out to texas.gov and renew, like, let's say your registration, the Texas.gov portal is a product of DIR. The Open Data Portal, which is free which is a free state repository for the public, and services which are services available to help our customers systems operating securely. All right, now the upper left quadrant, the very last one, policy and planning. So DIR is responsible for the IT strategic plan for the state of Texas, and knowing what plan is for the next year, or projecting out 3 years, maybe 5 years down the road. DIR provides IT standards for the state of Texas and is a resource for your customers to help set IT standards for your entities. And with legislative session in full swing right now, we report to the legislature on the state of the technology for the state of Texas. So that kind of gives you a pretty brief overview of the different sections of DIR and how we operate. Next slide, please. All right, so here is a listing of eligible DIR customers. This list always changes, and vendors are encouraged to visit the DIR website for eligible customers. Simply reading through the list, obviously it includes Texas agencies as well as institutions of higher education. And then many sectors of local government, like cities, counties, public schools, junior colleges, and so forth, as well as many other assistance or other organizations like assistance organizations, ERCOT, LCRA, private schools, volunteer fire departments, public safety entities, and many different hospitals. And we do have also, we are contracted with many other entities of many other different states who utilize our program. And we do have a large number, like I said, out-of-state entities who utilize our resources as well as our co-op contracts. All right, next slide, please. All right, so cooperative contract benefits. One of the most important ones is it creates savings, and it does this by leveraging the state's buying power to lower prices, contain best value, as well as providing bulk purchasing initiatives. It also streamlines the purchasing process by reducing purchasing and contract cycle time, reduces any duplicate efforts, and lastly, provides access to historically underutilized businesses. Some of the benefits for vendors, it simplifies the sales process for vendors, provides access to public entities, and access to approximately 3.05 billion in sales per year. And in essence, this is the state's buying power for the state of Texas. So one nice thing is that the purchasing process for customers, they can issue POs directly to the vendor with the DIR contract number noted. And in this case, in many cases, we've done the heavy lifting for you and negotiated the contracts and put them in place for our customers. All right, next slide, please. All right, so this is a pie chart that basically breaks down the DIR cooperative contracts for FY24 by customer segment. So in FY24, customers purchased over 3 billion of products and services through the cooperative contracts program, resulting in about 3.76 million in cost avoidance savings. The pie chart also represents sales as I mentioned a second ago, by customer group. Looking at the pie chart, local governments make up the largest percentage of sales at 34%, followed by state agencies at 31%. Then education K through 12 at 18%, followed by higher ed at 15%, and the remainder from assistance organizations and out-of-state customers. Another interesting note is that $3 billion in spending, approximately 21.5% was spent through the hub vendors and resellers. All right, next slide, please. All right, so now we'll cover the cooperative contracts solicitation process. Next slide, please. All right, so this slide, we did some trainings back on October 11th of 2024, and these are some very good, valuable links for vendors to go to our YouTube channel, or just actually pull up this in YouTube, these links. The first one is responding to co-op solicitations, which is what we're going to be covering right now. And then the second link is what we'll be covering when we talk more in depth about bid stamp. Next slide, please. All right, so the overall solicitation process, it involves planning as well as, opportunities for engagement. For instance, the pre-solicitation notice, which will be conducted once we actually release the solicitation itself, and then market engagements, which is what we're doing today, and any requests for comments. All right, now solicitations, they are capitalizing on the time investment, and this includes pre-proposal conferences, question and answer periods, response instructions, evaluation criteria, and any type of value-added services or things of that nature. And then lastly, evaluation and award. Evaluation behind the curtain. This is basically what we go through once we are going through the evaluation process. So it includes administrative reviews. We look at pass-fail criteria. We seek any types of clarifications if we have clarification questions through the evaluation to make sure we are evaluating each vendor fairly and properly. Then, of course, the evaluation process itself. And then once we've completed the negotiations and we go through what we call a recommendation for negotiation process, then we enter the negotiation phase where we actually negotiate the contract awards. Next slide, please. All right, so to talk a little bit more about planning, it's an opportunity for DIR to engage incumbent and potential respondents through the market engagement notice and other pre-proposal events. It also includes the forum for incumbent and potential vendors to understand the cooperative contracts program and DIR's vision for the next generation of law enforcement surveillance and security monitoring service contracts. And lastly, it provides an opportunity for DIR to engage with potential respondents and discuss the upcoming solicitation scope requirements. Next slide, please. All right, thank you. All right, so a little bit more about planning. Planning provides the lead times to identify and share with DIR new law enforcement surveillance and security monitoring categories and any types of market changes that may have occurred before since we've issued RFO 443, and I believe that was back in 2019 or 2020. So a lot could have changed but between then and now. So we're seeking those changes to make sure we incorporate those into the scope for 594. Also, to determine lessons learned and improvement opportunities, ensure good standing with the state of Texas through the controller accounts, as well as the Secretary of State. And this is obviously for the vendors because you'll want to make sure you're in good standing with them. engage with any hub vendors, obtain any resellers of authorization. This is what will be required in the solicitation process itself. This is required documentation. And then obtain accurate and current VPATs, as well as develop accurate and current PDAAs. And this is all tied to accessibility. All right, next slide, please. Okay, so the solicitation process. DIR posts solicitations to the Electronic State Business Daily, also known as the ESBD. The solicitations include background, requirements, response instructions, high-level evaluation criteria, key dates associated with the procurement, potential contract documents. DIR entertains vendor questions during a designated designated period through a rolling question and answer process. If something is not clear, please ask for clarity and please do not make any assumptions. Please ask if you have questions. And then lastly, DIR may post addendums to the solicitations. So please monitor the SBD for any updates or posting of solicitations. Some important points that I would like to mention again. Very importantly, please ask questions. Check the ESBD regularly, again, for any addenda or updates. Please take advantage of the hub review prior to submittal. They are here to help you fill out your hub forms if you should have any questions. This will help cut down on any type of hub clarifications needed. Please do not wait until the last minute to submit or submit the solicitation response documents in Bitstamp. Ensure that all required materials are included in your response. There are instructions and tables in the solicitation documents that will assist you through that process. And then lastly, do a final read of your documents prior to submittal, just to make sure that you have attached the proper items when you're uploading into our Bitstamp VIS system. Next slide, please. Okay, so this also includes, let's see, DIR will establish designated points of contact. Please avoid any contact or any attempts to contact agency personnel not listed as the POC for the solicitation. Doing this could lead to disqualification. This is very important to remember. We will also cover this in the pre-solicitation conference, but we'd like to mention it here because this happens quite often. And so please only be sure to contact the procurement lead, which in this case will be me. And then secondly, let's see, address all response instructions. Neglecting to comply may cost you points, but could also lead to disqualification or hinder further consideration of your response. Lastly, please review your response and review it again. Do not submit an incomplete response. Make sure it's a comprehensive package, and please acknowledge all addenda that have been posted through the solicitation process. And lastly, make sure someone of authority signs the RFO as well as the respondent to in other words, make sure that someone of authority signs the contract because it will legally bind you to your submittal. All right, next slide, please. All right, so evaluations, negotiations, and award. So please be patient as we evaluate responses and prepare for the steps of the process. Be sure to comply with agency interaction policies. Please avoid contacting DIR personnel beyond those identified in the solicitation itself. And then DIR may conduct vendor discussions to clarify DIR requirements and/or responses. And then lastly, DIR will notify respondents once evaluations are completed and DIR has identified the apparent awardees to indicate whether they are invited to the negotiation process or not. And then one last point I'd like to make is please avoid excessive email or phone calls requesting updates. The procurement lead will reach out directly if additional information is needed. All right, next slide, please. All right, now evaluation negotiations and awards continued. DIR considers any new information obtained orally or in writing throughout the process. Excessive exceptions to DIR standard terms and conditions may result in delayed negotiations and or no longer be considered for award. And then lastly, lack of response to DIR inquiries may result in a cease to negotiate if you are not responsive to our inquiries and our questions. All right, next slide, please. All right, now I'm going to turn this over to Marie Cohen, our digital accessibility officer, and she will discuss more in depth the accessibility process.
Thank you, Scott. Good afternoon. I'm Marie Cohan. I lead our statewide digital accessibility program, and I'm going to go through the requirements from a digital accessibility perspective. Next slide, please. So a little bit about digital accessibility. It's the practice of designing and building technology that removes barriers for people with disabilities that prevent interaction with or access to websites, digital tools, and technologies. Digital tools and technologies include products, services, communications, and related supporting documentation or deliverable documents. We follow a statute, Texas statute, which is Government Code 2054, Subchapter M. We also have conforming rules under TAC, which is TAC 206 and TAC 213. And we follow the World Wide Web Consortium WCAG 2.1 AA. These are standards that technology must meet in order for our customers to be compliant. Also want to point out that digital accessibility includes other terms like electronic and information resources and information and communications technology. Next slide, please. So for solicitations, we have 3 different types of documents that may apply to the solicitation. We have a policy-driven adoption for accessibility. We have a vendor accessibility development services information request, and we have an accessibility conformance report. Templates for these are typically in the solicitation packet, and then these will be submitted back to us if they pertain to the solicitation response. Next slide, please. Excuse me. So the first one I'm going to talk about is the policy-driven adoption for accessibility, or PDAA. This is a vendor self-assessment. This is not aligned or pertains to the product or service that is in your response. This is specifically about the vendor organization who is responding. This helps us understand where that organization is from an accessibility maturity standpoint. This can also be used to help your organization create a more mature accessibility program after reviewing it. The form is on an Excel document. It's completed using a 0, 1, 2, or 3 score, no check marks, no X's, no other symbols, and then it will have a total score at the bottom. If the score is 0, if this document is missing, or if this document is submitted incomplete, it can disqualify your response. So this is a required document. Please go through it carefully. Even if your organization is at a very immature stage when it comes to incorporating accessibility standards into your different business practices, even at the minimal stage, you should be able to still provide a score greater than 0. Next slide, please. This is what the maturity matrix looks like for digital accessibility. There's 3 main stages. And so you'll complete that form and it'll help you see which stage you fall into. Next slide, please. So for this particular solicitation, in reviewing the scope, it looks like we are dealing with a lot of technology products. Any of those products that have a user interface will be required to submit an accessibility conformance report. An accessibility conformance report is also known as a completed VPAT, or voluntary product accessibility template. The VPAT is just a template. It has those WCAG 2.1 standards and 2.0 standards that we spoke of earlier. You will go through as you test your product against those different standards and success criteria. Your product will have a conformance level. So it'll either conform, not conform, partially conform, etc. This form helps us see how your product conforms to those different standards. It also provides an explanation field so that you can provide additional context if your product doesn't fully conform to a particular standard. If you could submit these, please use VPAT version 2.4 or higher. There's a lot of shift going on in the industry right now, so we're moving to higher standards. So the now the lowest VPAT version we'll take is a 2.4 or higher. Again, this is completed based on accessibility testing of a product. If you're the manufacturer, then you would test your product with those standards using different types of assistive technology or manual processes. If you are a reseller, then you would go to the manufacturer and ask them to provide this report for you. Next slide, please. So this is what is on the voluntary product accessibility template. Accessibility standards are broken into 4 categories. They're either perceivable, operable, understandable, or robust. Under each of those categories, we have the standards and the success criteria. What you see on the screen right now is the new WCAG standard 2.1 AA. Next slide, please. And back to how your product conforms. These are the different conformance levels. So it either supports with exceptions, does not support, it's not applicable, or it was not evaluated because maybe it's at the AAA level and we only require AA. If it is anything that is not fully supported, please provide some kind of explanation in the explanation field. Next slide, please. So the vendor accessibility development services information request is for development services. I did not see anything in the scope of this particular solicitation that requires any kind of development services. But if for some reason that enters into the scope at all or into a particular contract engagement, then this form would be required. Next slide, please. So the questions on this form are going to talk about your business processes, how accessibility is incorporated into those. So think like product procurement, product development, etc. How are your developers trained? What kind of training do they do? Is the training just coursework, or do they get to work with assistive technology as well? What kind of development and testing tools are used? Are they testing with assistive technology? Are they testing with keyboard only? And then what kind of corrective action process do you have in place? How do you document defects? How do you track those defects, resolving them, etc.? And then if in the event there is a non-compliance or some kind of defect, what can the company do to provide an alternate method for a state of Texas customer? And this form also asks for examples. Again, this is only if a development service component is part of the scope, and you would need to ensure your development is at WCAG 2.1 AA. Next slide, please. DIR offers training for our vendors responding to our solicitations. Each of these courses is about 45 to 60 minutes long. One of them is just an introduction to digital accessibility. The other 3 courses are specific to doing business in the state of Texas, specifically to our procurements. So I encourage you to take these courses before you respond to a solicitation. These are free. And if you go to the next slide, please. This is how you would sign up for the courses. So we have a new process. you would go to the link on the screen at Level Access. You would click sign up, provide your email address, and then it's going to ask you for an access code. The access code is provided on the screen as well. And then you would hit continue, and then you should have access to the courses. If you have any trouble signing up for vendor training, you're welcome to email me at statewide-accessibility@dir.texas.gov. And please copy Scott on all communications to me. Next slide, please. We also have resources for you on our website. We have those templates that I spoke of as well. And when the solicitation gets released, those templates will be provided in the solicitation packet too. Next slide, please. Thank you so much for your time. Again, my email address is statewide-accessibility@dir.texas.gov. If you reach out to me with an accessibility question for this particular engagement, please copy Scott on all communications. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Marie. Awesome job as always. Now we're going to cover in a little more in depth our hub program, and speaking today on that will be Patty.
Hi, my name is Patricia Robbins. I am a hub coordinator, and let's talk about the importance of submitting a completed signed hub subcontracting plan. Next slide, please. All vendors, hub and non-hub, are required to complete and sign a hub subcontracting plan, also known as the HSP. Please visit the link provided for the most currently approved HSP. You will be required to download the form to complete it. The HSP form is owned and managed by the Comptroller's Office. Please remember not to modify this form in any way. Next slide, please. The expected hub goal for the solicitation is 21.1%. Again, all respondents, hub and non-hub, are required to submit a completed and signed HSP. Failure to submit a completed, signed HSP will cause your response to be rejected. This is a pass-fail document required in your bid response. There are 3 ways to complete the HSP. The first is you will meet or exceed the hub goal and complete Method A, Attachment A. The second is not meet the hub goal and complete Method B, Attachment B, which includes additional outreach requirements. And the third is self-performing. Next slide, please. I bet you didn't know the DIR has a YouTube channel. The 3 links are the resources available to you to walk you through the process of completing an HSP using each of the methods. Next slide, please. And to continue with those support tools, here is a list of some of the most common errors that we see on HSPs. Completing the wrong method, like completing Method A when you should be completing Method B, not entering your correct legal name, your Section 2B and Section A2 or Section B4 percentages not matching. They must match for approval. In Section A2, you are not allowed to put to be determined or $0 or 0%. Entering your franchise tax number instead of your IRS issued EIN or Texas VID number is also not acceptable. Not taking advantage of the courtesy review offered by the hub office is not acceptable either. Please take advantage of it. But at the end of the day, the biggest error is not using your resources to assist you in completing and passing your HSP. Next slide, please. Our contact information is listed here. Please remember that the HSP is a pass or fail document. We will provide you a courtesy review of your HSP prior to the due date of this RFO and as time permits. You must contact us no later than 10 business days prior to the due date of this RFO. Please allow yourself plenty of time to complete this document and to seek out the resources you may need, plus any additional time to complete any good faith effort outreach. Your hub department is here to assist you in completing your HSP correctly. And please copy the procurement lead, Scott Wilson, on any correspondence you have with the hub office. Thank you. Next slide, please.
All right, thank you, Patty. Appreciate that. So now we are going to pick up with responding to DIR solicitations through the vendor information system, also known as the Bitstamp VIS system. Next slide, please. So this is the same slide that I provided much earlier, but now we are going to be discussing the second part here, responding to co-op solicitations through the Bitstamp VIS system. And this is considered session 2 of the training that is on YouTube that we provided on October 11th of last year. So again, I highly advise you guys to go to these links. We will be providing these slides in the SBD for you to have after this forum. But I would, either way, I would highly recommend going to watch both of these YouTube links in depth. I believe you'll find it very, very helpful and informational. All right, next slide, please. Okay, so as far as bid submittals, let's see, responses must be submitted through the Bitstamp Vendor Information System, also known as VIS. The Bitstamp VIS portal link is provided here. And again, we will be providing these slides to you. So you'll have this link. So to access Bitstamp VIS portal functionality, a login credentials are required in order to get into the system. Then let's see, to obtain login credentials, you will click on a button, a radio button that's called "Are you a vendor and need to request an account?" The button will be located on the main login page. And then you may view a video on setting up your Bitstamp account at this link below. This is a very good link as well to go look at. It's similar to the one that we provided, training we provided in October 11th of last year, but this is also very good to go view and look at. I think it'll be very beneficial, particularly if you are new to DIR. So I would like to note that if you have previously created a Bitstamp account, you can use the same account. If you have not previously created a Bitstamp account, or your account information has changed, for instance, email or business name, you will need to create a new account. Since this is not an automatic approval process, please allow at a minimum 2 business days for your account to be approved. Now, this means that you cannot wait until the day responses are due to try to set up your Bitstamp account. Please note DIR is not open on weekends. Our standard hours are Monday through Friday, 8 to 5 Central Time, and requests received after business hours will be treated as if they were received on the following business day. All respondents must plan and make sure that you have received your login credentials prior to the due date for the RFO. If you have not received your Bitstamp login credentials, please contact the main point of contact, which would be myself in this case, and we will look into why you have not received any of that the required information to log in. All right, so then lastly, the link on this slide will take you to a video, as I mentioned a second ago, on how to set up your Bitstamp account. So for now, we'll skip it. We'll skip that in the presentation and just go over what we need, what you need to submit in order to have a responsive proposal. Next slide, please. So on bid submittal continued, persons with disabilities who seek accommodation under the American with Disabilities Act, also known as ADA, in responding to the solicitation may contact the DIR solicitation point of contact, which of course will be myself, and we will work with you work with you to accommodate you however we may do so. And then lastly, please allow at least 5 business days for our response back to you, because we will receive your response and we'll be researching internally, figuring out how we can help you. We'll obviously acknowledge your receipt, but we will, and again, please allow 5 business days for us to come up with a solution. And then lastly, I would like to note that DIR will not be liable for last minute request. It is advised to send in your ADA accommodations as early as possible to avoid delays to your submitting your RFO responses. All right, next slide, please. Okay, so responding to a solicitation. So after your vendor account is enabled, the vendor will submit and manage RFO responses from the Bitstamp VIS portal. And again, here is the Bitstamp link provided. This portal allows up to five users, and you must use login credentials that you have received after you set up your Bitstamp account for the login. And again, that will be provided in an email. I would like to make one note here before we move on. If you are an existing customer, it is advised that you check that your login credentials are still active at least 7 days prior, seven or more business days before the submission deadline. Unlocking and resetting accounts is not an automated process, and it does require time. So please, please, please do not wait till the last minute to do that. Next slide, please. All right. So after your account is set up, again, the vendor will submit and manage RFO responses from the Bitstamp information portal. In order to submit your response, you will simply click on the Open Solicitations button that you see highlighted in red. Next slide, please. Next slide. Thank you. All right, so creating a new response. So this page will show you all of the RFOs that are open to receive responses. For this RFO, you will navigate to and select the RFO number, which will be DIR-CPO-TMP-594. You'll of course need to log into the VIS portal and select the open solicitations tile that we covered on the previous slide. Again, you click on the RFO number and they will take you to the RFO detail page where you will be able to, again, click on the solicitation and start reviewing all the response documents that we have uploaded into the system. All right, next slide, please. All right, so creating new response continued. Please pay attention to the date and the time that responses are due. All times are in Central Time. Allow yourself enough time for any technical issues that you may encounter. Let's see, once the date and time has passed, Bitstamp will no longer allow you to submit your response, even if you were in the middle of submitting the response. In other words, if you're in the middle of uploading your response documents, and usually our due times are 2 o'clock. If it's 2 o'clock and you're still in process, Bitstamp will cut you off. So please do not wait to the last minute, and please plan accordingly to submit your response. And I always recommend submitting your response a few days in advance of the deadline, as a fail-safe for user errors. And sometimes if we have a lot of vendors uploading a lot of response documents, the system can slow down. So we highly recommend you do not wait till the due date or the day of the solicitation is due to do this. Again, in case you encounter any type of errors. All right, next slide, please. Okay, so RFO number detail button descriptions. All right, so respond to a solicitation or view response. With this, you can create a new response or view a response button, or view a response that is in progress. If a response has already been created and started, this button will read view response because you are it's in process, and allow you to resume your progress on the existing RFO response. The Ask Question button, this allows you to submit questions to be viewed by the DIR resource. Questions can be submitted up until the question submission deadline date indicated in the RFO document and on the detail page. Subscribe to solicitations, or to solicitation. Subscribe to a solicitation if you would like to receive addendum notifications. To subscribe to the solicitation, you must select the subscribe to solicitation button, and you have enabled your contact to receive notifications. And then for viewing solicitation documents, you'll navigate to the ESBD posting for a solicitation and review the solicitation documents. And again, this is where we upload all of these solicitation documents. And you'll view those in ESBD, but you will be responding and uploading the mandatory response documents in the Bitstamp vendor information system portal. So let's see, I talked about that. Okay, next slide, please. Okay. So the RFO response page buttons. This is kind of a busy slide, so I will kind of go through these one by one for you. So the delete button, this will delete all information that has been uploaded in the response record before the response has been submitted. Note, once the response is submitted, the vendor must use the withdraw button that will appear upon solicitation submission. So once you've submitted everything, the withdraw button will appear, and that is the only way to withdraw your response. As far as the submit button, see, this submits the response record and all associated information. You can reference vendor guide 5.7 for this information. All right, so now we're moving on to ask a question. Like I'd mentioned a minute ago, questions can be submitted up until the question submission deadline, indicated by the RFO document. So this is where you'll press that radio button and you'll type your questions and then submit them. And then moving on to creating pricing form. So you'll create a pricing form to submit pricing information for your response. And this is reference to vendor guide 5.5. And then moving on to new, and this is for new RFO responses. You will upload the required files indicated in the RFO posted on the ESBD link that we have provided you. And then in terms of the new vendor, for vendor references, submit a new reference. You'll submit a new reference email address and opt to send to the vendor reference to obtain references. And again, this is not where you will actually submit your references. In the solicitation itself, we will cover much more in depth that process. You will need to email or contact your point of reference, and your references will need to email us their reference forms, which is an exhibit to the RFO. They will need to complete those forms and email them directly to us. We do not accept those forms directly from vendors. They must come from your reference source directly. And what this button does is it allows you to email out to those vendors for the reference. I'd also like to point out real quick that it's highly recommended that you name the required response documents exactly the same as what they are named in the RFO instructions, so you do not miss loading a required document. It's very easy to do because some RFOs require a lot of response documents. Let's see, it's also highly recommended or strongly recommended that you load the documents in the format that were provided as exhibits in the RFO, for example, Word and Excel. Many times, converting a document to PDF will truncate the document, leaving off very important information that is needed for the response document to be considered complete. In addition, if you are using the electronic signature function, please be sure that there is a valid electronic signature and not just a typed name in the signature field. If you are not able to include a valid verified electronic signature on pages where a signature is required, please print that page, ink sign, and then, of course, upload a copy to the Bitstamp portal. One last thing I would like to point out is failing to follow the filing naming convention in the RFO instructions can also result in errors when attempting to upload your response documents. The Bitstamp VIS system does have character limits for file names. Following the naming convention will ensure that you do not receive an error message due to your file name being too long or invalid. It will also help to remove any ambiguity when identifying the correct response documents during the evaluation phase. We do receive phone calls from quite a few vendors who receive errors when uploading response documents into the VIS, and the naming convention is typically the most common cause. So please be very, very mindful of that and follow those instructions. Next slide, please. All right, so general information for vendors. Next slide, please. All right. Okay, so how to navigate to the Bitstamp vendor logon from DIR's response homepage. So you will click on the selling through DIR button there. Then you'll scroll down on the web page for further information. Of course, you access this from our main page at www.dir.texas.gov. Most of the information you will need is under the Selling Through DIR link located on the right-hand side of this page, as you can see in the slide above. And then once you click on the link, you'll be taken to that page. All right, next slide, please. All right, so this is also a very important slide. It is the schedule of solicitation opportunities. This is where you can discover current and upcoming solicitation opportunities. This is the first step on how to bid and secure our DIR contract. We do try to keep these updated weekly, and these solicitations will be listed in the current phase they're in, whether it's planning phase, pre-solicitation phase, solicitation phase, evaluations, or contract negotiations. So, like I said, we try to keep this page up to date, and it is a very good resource for you to look for and obtain current status on any RFO solicitations that you might be interested in. Next slide, please. Okay, so the Bitstamp guide is posted on DIR's website on the schedule of solicitations opportunity. And then looking at the slide, you can see the red box that's highlighted under the Bitstamp application. And this is where you can also access the Bitstamp online solicitation portal. This will take you to that link that we were talking about and shared with you earlier. All right, next slide, please. All right, so lessons learned. On this slide, you can see some of the top reasons your response can set aside or cause the solicitation process to lengthen due to clarifications. Incomplete or unclear responses do not score well and may result in your response scoring low or below the competitive break. Please ensure you read the RFO instructions completely and thoroughly and answer what is asked and answer what is asked in clear, simple language. You want to communicate clearly as your response is evaluated based on how thoroughly you answer the questions. And then let's see, asked within the allocated page limits that are provided for you, because we do have page limits for answering questions. Please think of this as a written resume of your skills, services, and products. Marketing materials are highly discouraged. Please plan ahead. Tailor your response to the question asked in the posted exhibits. Please remember that any exceptions taken must be substantiated in Exhibit A1 with an explanation and proposed alternative language redlined against the standard DIR language to be considered as officially submitted. Please note excessive or material exceptions to attachment 2, the standard terms and conditions, also known as Appendix A, may result in no intent or cease to negotiate notices. If the respondent fails to note any exception within the initial response, they will not be allowed to request an exception upon award or at sometime later in the process. And I'd also like to mention here, please ensure that your information on the public-facing profile of the following websites is correct and up to date. The first, the Dun & Bradstreet websites, the Texas Secretary of State, the Texas Centralized Master Bidders List, if applicable, and lastly, the Texas Controller of Public Accounts CPA Financials Tax account status is current and correct. Please make sure ahead of time, please, especially the Secretary of State, as well as the franchise tax record, please make sure those are updated, and please make sure your status is current for being able to conduct business in the state of Texas. We do check those, and those are showstoppers. If you are not listed as active for transacting business in the state of Texas, that will stop everything in the process until you can get that fixed. So please make sure that those are updated and kept current. See, then, also please note that waiting until DIR contacts you to address discrepancies on these account delays may delay your solicitation process and can result in a cease to negotiate. So please stay on top of these and keep everything current. That will help us help you. All right, next slide, please. All right, so here are some just some quick resources to use. The Texas Open Data Portal. This is a vast area of information that you can go obtain, and it gives you all kinds of information about anything you'd want to know, basically. Here is the link for it. Vendors are encouraged to regularly check the Electronic State Business Daily, also known as ESBD. Here is the link provided for it, and the schedule of solicitation opportunities under the information for vendors page. And then again, here is the link for that. And of course, you will access that from our main page, and then selling through DIR, and then that will take you to where you can also select on the schedule of solicitation opportunities page. For more information on how to do business with the state of Texas, please visit the controller's website at the following link. All right, to the next slide, please. And just real quick, just a reminder that DIR does have a YouTube channel, as well as our hub program. And again, you could go to our YouTube channel and find any type of pre-solicitation conferences, vendor engagement forums, any type of conference that we conduct is pretty much posted to our YouTube page. And you could also, like I said, in terms of looking at the trainings that I mentioned on the 2 slides earlier, you'll also find those obviously on the YouTube channel. Let's see. Next slide, please. All right. So for general inquiries regarding this RFO, Here's my contact information. Again, I am the main procurement lead, so please contact me directly if you have any questions or concerns or issues. And then for inquiries regarding Bitstamp, you can also contact me, but you can also contact Stephanie Harrison. She is our director of the cooperative program. She can also be of assistance. And then for any type of hub inquiries, questions or reviews that you might be requesting for the hub subcontracting plans, you can reach out to Teresa Williamson, director of the hub program, at the email address or the DIR hub email address provided. All right. Next slide, please. All right. So next steps, next slide, please. All right. So for next steps, some of this we may have covered earlier, but I would like to kind of review it here for you just to go over it once again. So the release of the RFO is expected to be next month in April of 2025. It'll most likely be towards the end of the month, but we are actively working on this solicitation document to get this released as soon as possible. RFO solicitation, the RFO solicitation conference will be approximately 1 to 2 weeks following the release of the RFO. We try to do it at least around 2 weeks. It seems to be a good time period to do that. A week is really too soon. A week is really a good time for us to hit that. Let's see, RFO posting time will be approximately 45 calendar days, and DIR may consider additional time if we so deem that it's necessary. Responses must be submitted as specified in the RFO by the submission date. And then please adhere to the points of contact in the RFO once it has been posted. Until then, interested parties may continue to contact individuals listed on prior slide for questions regarding the RFO, Bitstamp, or any hub-related matters. All right, next slide, please. Okay, so this brings us to the open forum, and this is where we are asking vendors to please share your thoughts of what is working, what is not working with the current law enforcement and surveillance contracts. So if there is any feedback that you would like to provide us, we would like to hear that at this point.
If the attendees would raise their hand, I can allow them to talk. So just raise your hand and we'll let you talk. All right, we have one person. Go ahead, Rick. You're muted. Unmute yourself, Rick.
I did that once.
There you go. It's working now.
All right. Question, what is the normal turnaround time on new applications for Texas franchise tax?
Well, a while back,
Not in your department, right?
yeah. So a while back they were running behind, but from what we've been told and from what we've seen, handling our contract negotiations, they are up to date. So I would plan for maybe a week or so.
Okay.
Time.
I'm already in the process of filling it out, and I've already filled out everything for Bitstamp.
Oh, Bitstamp. Okay.
Bitstamp, yeah, that's done.
Okay.
I'm waiting on approval for that, so it's pretty simple. I'm used to using a lot of Ion Wave for doing these types of contracts.
Okay.
Some of your competition, actually most of your competition in Texas uses ion wave, but that's okay. It's no big deal. I do contracts all day, so this isn't anything out of the ordinary.
Okay, that's good to know. Definitely good feedback.
Okay, I think we have one more. Oh, nope. I don't see any hands raised right now.
Okay, no hands raised. All right, this is y'all's opportunity to let us know what we're doing good and what we're doing right and what we're doing wrong and can improve on.
I see Rick raised his hand again. Rick, do you want to unmute? Okay.
Maybe he forgot to
Oh,
click.
we got one more. All right, we've got one more. Go ahead, Henderson.
Yeah, thank you very much. Can you give me some insight on how often you expect this contract vehicle to be renewed and how long this current contract vehicle will be running? Thank you.
Certainly. Thank you for your question. So most of these contracts are negotiated for 5 years. In other words, the initial term is 2 years. Then typically we have one optional 2-year period, then one optional 1-year period for a total of 5 years. In terms of how often the law enforcement and security monitoring and surveillance contracts are rebid, I could tell you that I had mentioned earlier that RFO 443 was the previous RFO, and 594 is the resolicitation of that. And prior to that, we also have had a couple of RFOs where these have been resolicited. So we have been soliciting these law enforcement contracts for a number of years. There's a lot of high demand, high usage for them. And as long as that demand and usage stays there, we will continue doing this. Now, there's no guarantee from solicitation to solicitation that they will be rebid. A lot of that is done with the approval of the DIR executive leadership and management, as well as legislatures to approve of what we will be soliciting. I hope that answers your question for you.
Yes, thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you for your question.
And then we have Sarah, if you want to go ahead and unmute.
Hi, yeah, this is Greg, actually, not Sarah.
Oh, sorry, I was going off the name.
Yeah, it's fine. I actually registered for this 3 times on 2 different email accounts, and I never got my credentials or the Zoom invite. So my colleague, who also registered, shared her invite, and that's why my name's showing up as hers. My question, by the way, thank you guys for doing this today. Very good presentation. My question is, if we were a vendor on RFO 443, does any of that carry over to this resolicitation, or we're pretty much, I think the answer is we're starting from scratch on all our submissions?
Yes, sir, that's correct. It's
Okay.
a separate solicitation, correct.
Okay, got it. Appreciate that.
Sure, absolutely. Any other questions?
No, not from me.
Okay, all right. Thank you so much.
Rick, did you have another question? Okay, then we have Alex. Would you like to ask the question?
Yes, thank you guys. In the getting into a more technical question, in the security monitoring technology solution products and services and so on, are you guys looking to protect what and what are the current product that you guys are using or services?
Thank you for your question. Let's see, in order to answer that more thoroughly, I would have to go look at some of the current security monitoring contracts we have in place. I don't know all of them at this time.
Okay.
In order to answer your question thoroughly, we probably need to go look at that. This is being recorded, so we will get back to you with a more thorough answer. If that's
Okay, appreciate it. Yeah, because we have some, you know, in the security space, things changes pretty drastically, and so we have some ideas on how to do certain things. But having a more insight on how you guys are doing today and what are you guys are protecting will help us to respond the RFO a lot better.
Sure. No, I understood. And it really, like you alluded to, it is a pretty wide open requirement. I mean, I could tell you that the security monitoring, it encompasses a lot of different things, or items. So it's really pretty, open, so to speak, on, what you're willing to propose.
Okay.
That helps. I mean, we try, and we do not want to make any type of specification or requirement restrictive. So, as I said earlier, we have a lot of state agencies and local government, local government institutions, as well as a lot of institutions out of the state of Texas. In fact, we literally have 46 states that contract to utilize our cooperative contracts. So we have a lot of visibility. So we like to offer a very wide variety of products and or services that gives a lot of our customers, just different opportunities to contract with us.
Got it. Okay.
Okay. Then we have Alejandra. Would you like to speak?
Yes, thank you. Thank you for doing this presentation. I just wanted to make sure, did you guys say that we have to have a hub certification in order to participate?
Do you guys want to, I mean, I can answer, say yes, it's absolutely a requirement. No matter which method you are utilizing or if you're self-performing, a hub subcontracting plan must be completed, filled out, and submitted with any RFO response. That is a mandatory response document that we do indicate in the RFO solicitation document itself, that is indicated. But Brianna,
Yes.
you guys wanna-
The HSP is required, but you as the prime do not have to be hub certified.
All right. Sounds good. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay. Rick or Dwayne, I see y'all's hands raised.
Yeah, just to clarify, so if we're not a prime and we're a hub, we are required to submit an HSP, or are you saying we need to find a prime to partner with as a hub?
To respond on the solicitation, an HSP is required by hub and non-hub primes. You're not required to be a hub, but everybody has to submit an HSP. I hope that helps.
Yeah, I guess so. If I'm a hub, I'm going to be filling out an HSP and just essentially explaining that my HSP plan is myself.
There is a self-performing option on the HSP, and you can submit a precursory review to the DIR hub office, so we can review that and let you know if anything would need to be edited. And I believe that is all the hands raised for right now.
Okay. Alright, so this is your last opportunity to ask any questions that you might want to have answers to.
Rick, do you have a question? I see your hand raised and lowered. Just making sure. Just want to double check.
Okay, well, Ren, I guess let's move on to the next slide. And we've kind of been doing the discussion and questions as well with the open forum. So I guess let's go to the next slide, please. All right, thank you. All right, so again, for any questions or other inquiries prior to the posting of the RFO, you can again contact the individuals listed on this slide for any types of questions. You can reach out to me for any general inquiries, including Bitstamp, Stephanie Harrison for Bitstamp related questions as well, and of course to Teresa Williamson or to the DIR Hub email address for any type of Hub subcontracting questions, whether they're prime related or sub related. Next slide, please. All right, so we will be posting the market engagement information slide deck, as well as a recording link and any sign-in sheets and the Zoom attendance list at the ESPD for your convenience. And this link provided is the link from the ESPD to navigate to this solicitation offer 594. So again, we will post this so you can have this information, as well as the training, the YouTube training sessions 1 and 2 that I had spoken of earlier. Again, I highly recommend that you go and watch those videos in depth. They are very informative and very, very helpful. And I think it will really help, particularly if you are newer to DIR, it will really help you understand the Bitstamp solicitation process and the steps that you must go through, and it'll help you prepare. So when we do list the solicitation on ESPD, you will be ready, prepared, and ready to roll. All right. Next slide, please. And for that, we thank you for joining us today. Again, thank you for your feedback. Thank you for your questions. Thank you for all your information. And please do not hesitate to reach out to me with any questions, comments, or concerns. Again, you have my contact information. It is on the schedule of solicitation opportunities page, as well as in the ESPD listed with the pre-solicitation notice for this RFO. So again, please do not hesitate to reach out to me if you have any questions or concerns. With that, thank you so much and appreciate y'all's time and attention.